And in photosystem 1, we've got a chloroplast. In that chloroplast is some chlorophyll. And again, this is really just an illustration of the description we talked about. That chlorophyll's got electrons in it. Now I'll write it over here so we remember it, that higher on the board is higher energy. Not really important, but some people forget that. The higher we go, the higher energy. So we're going to have a wavelength of light come in, sunlight coming in. What wavelength did we say photosystem 2 works best at?
680.
680 nanometers. So I know it's 680 nanometers. Now, as that solar energy is hitting those electrons, it's going to excite them. It's going to make them vibrate. It's going to give them energy. Electrons can jump to a higher energy state. That's what I mean by this being a different, being all with, this is the same chlorophyll molecule. It's just now the electrons are at a higher energy state. So we excite these electrons to a higher energy state. Well, now, if we had them up here and simply let them fall back down to their resting state, all that would happen is we'd give off a little light, and that would be that. It's called fluorescence. It's how these light bulbs work above your head. There's a gas in there. We send an electric charge, excites the electrons. When the electrons fall back down to their resting state, they emit light. That's how lights work. Well, if you're a plant, if all you did was let your electrons fall back down, gave off some light, that doesn't help you. You gave off light, so what? What we want to do is we want to lower those electrons back down to a lower resting state slowly. If we do it slowly, we can get the energy out of it. One way to look at it, you go to Niagara Falls. It's really super cool. One thing you notice about the falls, long before you get to them, is you hear them very loud. That water's doing nothing as it runs over the falls other than eating its way back up the river. You can't do anything with that water. But if you let that water come down more slowly through a turbine, that can make electricity. Slow is better. Same thing is true in your car. If you released all the energy in the gas tank of your car at once, would that be a good thing?
No.
No, it would blow up. You're not going to get home very fast if your car explodes, at least not in one piece. The whole point of an engine is to put a little bit of, burn a little of that fuel, a little bit of the time, to get some use out of it. So we're going to send this down a system, but we want to do it in a controlled manner. So these electrons go through something called the cytochrome system. And they're going down that cytochrome system over here. In this case, there actually is a different chlorophyll molecule. And guess where we're sending those electrons to? What did we say was the next step?
PS1.
Photosystem 1. So now when we bring that energy down more slowly, this is also an electron transport system, sometimes called a redox chain. What we're able to do is take ADP, again, a lot of the same things we talked about 2 weeks ago, plus P, and what's that going to allow us to make? ATP. Turns out ATP is going to be pretty important. Well, now we got these electrons over here. Sun's shining still. What wavelength of light does photosystem 1 work best at?
700.
700 nanometers. So we got 700 nanometers. And big surprise, we excite the electrons all over again. Still more chlorophyll. Excited electrons. Well, now we got to go back and look at a problem before we finish our story. If I excite these electrons and send them up to photosystem 1, what's going to happen eventually?
They'll fall back down.
Well, they're going to fall back down. They'll fall back down over there. That's okay. But what's going to happen? I excite this electron and send it away. I excite this electron and send it away. I excite this electron and send it away. Eventually, you run out of electrons. That would be a problem. Photosystem 2 needs an electron source. And it turns out that electron source is going to be water. And the first thing that's going to happen is photolysis. So we're going to get rid of oxygen, and we're going to get rid of hydrogen. Don't worry about the 1s and 2s, I'm not worried about balancing. What's going to happen to this oxygen? It's a waste product. It goes away. Lucky for us, because that's where we get our oxygen from. But it's still a waste product as far as the chloroplast is concerned. Well, it turns out we're going to split that hydrogen now. We're going to split it into H+, which are hydrogen ions, also known as a proton, and our electrons.
So is this an acidic process technically? Like there must be a bunch of
Sort of, kind of, but we're gonna deal with this. It's fate. Don't forget about this over here, because it's going to become important later. But right now, we'll just leave it here. So now these electrons go back into the chlorophyll. We keep giving electrons to chlorophyll. The system stays running. All right, let's come back over here. Again, we want those excited electrons, and we want them to come down to a lower resting state. So this time, we're going to send them down something called a ferredoxin chain. And what's going to happen in our ferredoxin chain is we're going to take some NADP plus the electron plus hydrogen ions, and that's going to allow us to make NAD. I'm going to get out of your way 1 second. NADPH. Well, the NAD is available in the cell. The electron we got from here. Where did our hydrogen ion come from? This one over here. So it's a long dotted line. And that gets us to our NADPH. any part of this that's unclear before we go further? I don't want to get you too buried, get your head exposed. We're good with this? No problems, no issues? Outstanding, yes.
How much longer is it? I'm running out of room.
That's the end of our light reaction. You won't need more space than
Oh,
this.
yay.
We still got to get to the dark reactions, which are a whole other drawing.
Oh, boy.
But this is just this part.
Great.
But are there any questions about how we get here before I teach you two big words for the day, and then we move on with our story? Okay, either you're really good or you're lying. Yes.
So why does PS do so important this one?
It's the way it is. When I used to teach for a Catholic high school, the answer for that was really easy. It's the way God wants it. Now it's just the way it is. When I used to teach at a Catholic high school, we always decided that the science department and theology department were the same department. We were the how, they were the why.
Okay.
But it just is. There really isn't a why.
You mentioned that in the first reaction, when the electrons are excited, that's the same body there.
This is the same chlorophyll molecule.
Right.
This is the same chlorophyll molecule, but these two are not the same.
Okay, that's an important part of it.
Just to let you know that these are actually separated, not by much. You're talking about, within a mitochondria. I mean, within a chloroplast, but this is within the same chlorophyll molecule. This goes to the other. Yes.
So part 1 and part 2 are the same thing as the light independent reaction?
These collectively are the light independent reaction.
Okay.
Yes.
Does paradoxin chain refer to just the movement of the electron, or does it include the movement of the proton?
The ferredoxin chain is the biochemical pathway that makes this happen.
Okay.
Because if you look at your book or you look at higher level books, there's a whole series of things going on here and a whole series going on here
Okay.
that we didn't get into. But it's a lot more complex than that. There's transmembrane proteins, there's a whole variety of things. Believe it or not, this is the simple version.
Yeah,
I don't want to give you
my notes are like,
the really complex version. Yes.
And so where
Yeah.
are the people? And so in there?
This here?
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. Hold on to that idea because that's why we put a box around this and that. Because our story's only half done. All right. If we look at this piece here, basically we're adding phosphate to something. Or adding, and phosphate has phosphate. What do you think we call the process of adding phosphorus to something? You're half right. You already got the first part done. Well, what do we call the process of adding water to something?
Fertilizer?
You're all drinking water. What are you doing?
hydrating.
You're hydrating. So hydrating is adding the water part. What do you think we call adding phosphorus?
Phosphorylation?
Phosphorylation, yes, phosphorylation actually. And again, don't write the word till we get it all done because it's going to be bigger than you think. This process here, part of it, part of the word, we're building it backwards, is called phosphorylation. That was spelled wrong. But we got more to it. Phosphorylating simply means adding
Package.
phosphorus to something. Well, what is providing the energy for this to happen?
The packet of energy.
The water.
Not the water, the sun. What is a prefix that means light? Photo. So what kind of phosphorylation do you suppose this is? It's photophosphorylation. Still not done, hang on. Now, if we start here and go that way and go away and go out, is that a cycle? No. Going here to here to here to here to here out. It's not a cycle. Well, what's a word that has cycle in it that's the opposite of cycle? What little three-letter prefix can I put in front of cycle to mean it's not?
None.
None, absolutely. So this process is called non-cyclic. Oops, spelled wrong. There we go. I didn't erase it. One of these days I'll make a PowerPoint of this. Actually, with this one, I really don't like the PowerPoint because it's easier, I think, for you to see it in pieces.
What was photophosphorylation?
Hang on. So non-cyclic, meaning we're not in a circle. We start here and go one way. Photo, meaning we're using light as an energy source. Phosphorylation means we're adding phosphorus to ADP to get ATP. So if nothing else, when you go home tonight to the significant other, gee, what did you learn in school today? Instead of, nothing. Which is the answer all of my parents get from their students every day. What did you learn in school today? Nothing. But you can say, go home and say, well, gee, we learned about non-cyclic photophosphorylation.
Cyclic.
They will think you're the
Cyclic.
smartest person ever.
Is that CLIC? Photo?
Cyclic, yes.
Okay.
CYCLIC.
What was the definition for non-cyclic? Alternating?
Meaning it's not a cycle.
Okay.
It goes in one direction.
And then photo?
Photo meaning we use light.
As an energy source?
Phosphorylation meaning we add phosphorus to the ADP to get ATP. Now the only catch to going home and explaining how brilliant you are is what's the trap question that comes? What's that? But believe it or not, one of the things I recommend, especially with this, because this is why we do this after the first test, because if I added this to the first test, you'd be unhappy. It's why we do respiration first, because respiration is easier than this. The best thing is, if when you're done, you can not only answer question 1 in your homework questions, but explain it to somebody else, then you know what you're doing. Always a good thing. And I guarantee almost everyone you run into at home has no idea what non-cyclic photophosphorylation is. You might have some smart aleck that's in college or been through college or is a biochemist, in which case you're stuck. But more often than not, it gives you an opportunity to have somebody who doesn't know anything about it. If you can actually explain it to them, then you know what you're doing. All right, questions about this before I add yet another twist to it? Cool. Yes?
Are we supposed to remember the whole word on the
Absolutely.
The best bet is to break the word down.
It'll work. All right. So we end up with ATP and NADPH, which is all well and good, but we don't always need NADPH. These are high energy products, that's true, we're going to talk about that. But NADPH only works in photosynthesis. It has no other function anywhere in the plant. ATP, on the other hand, is like money. Can you ever have too much money?
No.
Of course not. Get you more money, you'll find a way to need more of it. So, if a plant already has all the NADPH it needs, but the sun's still shining, is it going to want to harness that energy? Sure it is. Living systems are not wasteful. So what I'm going to have you do in small groups, if you get this, I'll be thrilled. Usually about 3 out of every 5 groups come to this on their own. Unless, of course, you did all the reading, and then in which case you already knew the answer to this question. Is there a way for a plant, using whatever's on the board, to make ATP using photosystem 1 instead of making NADPH? What I want you to do is have a chat and figure out how can a plant make ATP from photosystem 1 and not make NADPH. Take a couple of minutes.